beautiful people, welcome back. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today I am bringing you back my friend and my guest, Indi. So she is the co-host of Living Holistically with Dayne and Indi. And if you yet to listen to that episode, please go and check it out. They have shared amazing wisdom on living a quality life and some amazing relationship tips. Now, I have invited Indi back to share her own personal story because everyone's got stories. And I am so thankful that she was so raw and so real and so brave for sharing all parts of herself. So if you are someone who has perhaps family issues, family traumas, or maybe you are facing it right now, you are going to find this episode inspiring. If you would like to know why and how you can start taking more responsibility of your life, well, Indi is going to share a few things with you on how you can start and what you need to be more aware of. There are many ways that you can help yourself, to embrace yourself, to heal yourself, to love, to live life differently. And I know that you're curious on what areas in your life that you can enhance so you can live the best quality of life that you deserve. So continue watching. Just a heads up though, because Indi and I had such a great chat, this episode is going to be in 2 parts. Now please do a screenshot and tag Indi and I on social. We will appreciate the love. And enjoy!
I feel a lot of people underestimate how big of a role food is in our life. So what would you like people to be more aware of? Perhaps maybe eat less of processed food and sugar. That's what you said last time.
Yeah, I did. And I think because not a lot of people, and until I really had to deal with this, not a lot of people realize how opportunistic and stubborn when you have the yeast get out of control. And chances are, if you're, having a modern lifestyle and, mainstream lifestyle like we do, where we take pharmaceuticals and antibiotics when we're sick, and we generally eat, foods that aren't very nourishing and foods that are going to feed the pathogenic yeast, we generally will have some sort of imbalance there. And the reason that's no good is the type of symptoms it causes are things like brain fog. So we're not going to be able to perform in work or, any sort of life admin duties, those sorts of things. It also, it makes toxic byproducts in the body. Like, this is what the yeast produces. So when there's too much of those, our liver can't, it gets overloaded. So it'll come out other places, like we'll get bad, skin and stuff. And just, generally really taxing on the body. So sleeping more, really fatigued, those sorts of things. And the sugar cravings, because they're the signals it's sending to the brain of like, give me more sugar. Or like, is it the yeast talking? Probably. Where is it going with that? And these, the candida yeast, they're actually the ones that are responsible for breaking down your body when you die. So that's why you don't want them to get too out of control, because they're sort of, great when you die and stuff, but you don't want them out of control when you're still alive, because you don't want those types of, symptoms that will literally make you feel like death,
Did you study nutrition, by the way?
No, I didn't.
So all these information is from self-taught?
Yeah, it's from studying, I guess, other people's work.
Yes.
So I guess some of the stuff that you kind of would see in nutrition, but not a formal education as such, just more my own study.
Yeah, but it has helped you.
It does help a lot, and I'm able to help people, where I work, and, going to be coaching people as well. So, because a lot of people have been taught, because the common thing, as I was saying last time, was that, the refined sugar is really bad, artificial sweeteners are really bad, but, you've quit sugar even if you're having, the unrefined sweeteners, like all your coconut sugar. And I think what happens is it provides a false sense of security for people. And people also, what's really wrong at the moment is our the adult's daily intake for sugar is still at about 100 grams. So when you see the little percentage on processed foods of this is only 10% of your daily sugar, it's because it's taking into account that 100 grams of sugar a day is okay. And this is just not right. There's been so much study into this, and this is not how we've evolved either. We would never have had access to that much sugar, in our past. And so, yeah, the body just, and we're not moving enough as well to be using it. Like, it's bizarre. And even people that are moving lots and are going to the gym, it's still sort of, you can't really sort of justify that much because it still has such a negative inflammatory and immune suppressive impact on the body. So there's really no reason you would want to have that much sugar in your daily diet. So it's been studied, and about the daily max sugar, unfortunately, is about 20 grams for most adults. It's a bit higher for guys, but unfortunately as well, because I think women probably have more of a sweet tooth. But yeah, and it's not so much about having to be really, really restrictive and strict. It's more so an awareness of how much is in even health foods. I work in a health food shop, and I think I said this, like, the majority of the shop I won't buy because either the ingredients are just crap and there's lots of additives, or it's really high in sugar. So I think it's just something good to be aware of, that most things are really high in sugar unless you're very intentional about keeping it low. And it doesn't mean you can't enjoy things. You can still make things really, really sweet and really, really flavoursome and enjoyable without the sugar. So I guess I'm sort of on a little bit of a crusade to help people experience and understand that. And that's why I want to really explore all the different natural sugar-free sweeteners that are diabetic friendly, so they don't increase your I remember
insulin.
Yes, that's your blood sugars. So you don't want to increase it because there's the the GI index. So it's really funny how you see the breads are low GI and stuff, but often
that's for dumb people.
Or I've seen the ads now where it's Helga's and they're it's going to feed you good bacteria and stuff. And I'm because bread has fiber, and it always has, but it's such a buzzword now to be it's got prebiotics, it's going to feed you bacteria. But on the other hand, you have all these ingredients. You have yeast, which feeds your opportunic pathogenic bacteria. So you've got this, canceling each other out of it's so good because it's got fiber, but then, it's got yeast. That's going to, sway your balance out a bit.
For those people who have sweet tooth, what would be some tips that you would give them?
I think having your already prepared sweet snacks is really handy. I don't think I would be able to live without that, because I'm still human, still get cravings. Having things with lots of cinnamon, because that balances your blood sugar, and also is really nice in sweets. So it's got that, two-pronged approach. And having true organic cinnamon that's from Sri Lanka and organic is the best. That's going to have the best medicinal benefit in terms of being antifungal and also balancing your blood sugar. So, putting that on every sort of hot chocolate and dessert you can. Yeah. But what I generally do is I try, and I know this is impossible for everyone, but some recipes that literally take about half an hour, and you've whipped up a batch of muffins or something, or a cake for the week, and just being able to have a muffin a day. And you can always add things to it to make it more satiating, different fats and stuff. But I find that's, the best way to get through it, and just having those recipes that are grain-free, sugar-free, meaning that, they've got no sugar sweeteners, natural sweeteners in there. So that, you're not having a sweet and it's adding to that very minimal daily sugar intake. because sort of to make it sweet enough for our taste buds, we generally have to put quite a lot in there when it's a normal sweetener, like a normal sugar sweetener. Because all those natural unrefined sweeteners like maple syrup and like coconut sugar and agave and rice malt syrup, that's a tricky one, because they're all really, really, they're still almost 100% sugar, but have been said to have a little bit of nutritional benefit. And like I was saying, it's sort of that thing of like, does that little benefit then cancel out the negatives of that sugar? And most of the time it's not going to. You know, as I said, we have really small amounts of honey because that's got really good medicinal benefits from a good source, obviously. But most of the time you are just better off going with a monk fruit sweetener or a sugar alcohol sweetener that you can tolerate. And the sugar alcohol sweeteners are neither alcohol or a sweetener, or sugar, sorry. They're actually from fermented like beets and corn that's like, you know, organic, obviously. But it's, it has been obviously fermented down to that form. But if you're having that in moderation, it still ends up being a lot healthier for you. They've even found in studies that xylitol can help, has effect, you know, obviously they say it's good for your teeth, that's always been well known, but it can actually have a positive impact on keeping those pathogenic yeast under control. So it's really good for those people that might have, you know, some symptoms or like some gut, you know, symptoms or brain fog or, you know, just in general lethargy or yeast symptoms. Yeah,
I think your body also takes a while to get used to it, by the way. Like, because if you have grown up eating processed food and high in sugar and salt and all those stuff, of course it would take time for your body to, I guess, have less of certain things. So speaking of your healthy snacks, would you like to provide a recipe that is easy for everyone to make at home?
So we have a really good pancake recipe that won't spike your blood sugar, because a lot of those and also won't feed any opportunistic or pathogenic things in your gut. It's made with buckwheat flour. So, and it follows a really easy rule of thumb for a serving for two. It's just 1 cup of buckwheat flour and making sure you get a really good source that's organic. We prefer to get it, it's Tasmanian grown, and it's a really good quality then, because we find that when you get it from China, where a lot of it's grown, it tends to look actually very deficient in nutrients. Like it's like white, you know, it almost looks like it's been bleached compared to the one in Australia that's like a nice dark rustic color, the way it should look, you know. So that we found is really important. And also then using organic eggs, so it's just 1 egg. And over time I've stopped using nut milk in them and used water instead, just filtered water. But you could obviously use nut milk if you wanted. So it's just 1 cup of that as well. And then 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Yeah. So just easily mixing that up, you know, and pouring them the way pancakes would. They really hold their shape really well.
I will leave the recipe in the description below, and I will also be leaving Indi's account in the description, because she has been sharing some recipes in her account as well. Now, is there anything that you feel like people need to eat more of to help their gut health?
Definitely more sauerkraut if you can. Generally, if you're having any sort of funny reaction to it, it's because your gut's in a bad place. So what you might need to do beforehand is do some more healing of it, say with a really good source of colostrum powder. If you need a recommendation, just reach out. But I found that doing that, then you won't have any histamine response, because people know it as having, you know, that it's one of those foods that have high in histamines and can set that off in people. But it's really getting one that has well-studied strong strains of bacteria in it, like peace loving vegetables, which can be found in any health food store. And that's pretty much the only one at the moment that has specific strains and not just wildly fermented to have any sort of thing in it. Because I think that's also important to note, that if your health is compromised or you have any type of symptoms, you're probably going to want to get one that's not wildly fermented. And I think that's the only one that I know of at the moment.
Yep. Nice.
So just starting as well with a forkful, because you don't want to go overboard, but you really can increase it to as much as you want. It's just, slowly increment it.
Yes.
And just, I think this is not what to eat, but I guess what not to eat. Obviously we know sugar is not going to be good, but things, if you do have any sort of imbalance or funny symptoms, it can be really important to cut out starchy vegetables as well, even just for a little while, and see how you feel. And obviously bread. So there is some breads that you can make your own or buy, like buckwheat, or ones that are almond meal occasionally. But sometimes it can just be really good to, go without and try different recipes. Like we'd also just recently been making a substitute for porridge, because, oats and porridge is something you can really enjoy in winter, but they're still unfortunately one of those sort of grains that are starchy and really high in carbs that can influence your blood sugar and be food for those yeast and bacteria that can be opportunistic or pathogenic. And also sugar feeds viruses. So if anyone's concerned about being immune compromised and getting viruses, trying to keep that that sugar load really low, and also things high in arginine. So unfortunately things like chocolate. I know. So if anyone gets cold sores or any other virus things, you want to cut chocolate out for that time. And like nut butters and nut milks, obviously almonds are really high in arginine. And I didn't know this for a long time, because obviously that's one of those beneficial foods when we're trying to get away from dairy or, things high in sugar. We go to like an unsweetened almond milk or something. But if you are in that situation where you're a bit run down and open to viruses, or you have like a cold sore popping up, you just like want to lower that down a bit and not have nuts and stuff. So there's obviously many more factors, but just I think doing your own research about things that do feed viruses, like foods that feed viruses and weaken your immune system. Like this is another one people aren't going to like, but for your gut and immune system, not drinking alcohol. And this is something I struggled with for a long time, because I was still emotionally drinking and, socially drinking as well. But I think just even like cutting it down, because in our culture, it's so acceptable to have it every evening or something, a wine. But that yeast and that sugar and the alcohol are some of the worst things, unfortunately, especially if we're already a bit run down or something.
I think many times when people are about to consume anything, I would encourage people to, I guess, know the intention of why you're doing it, especially with alcohol. Like, why do you need to have a glass of alcohol with your dinner? Or why do you need to drink so much when you go out with your friends? And I would highly encourage people to really stay in tune with their body, because only you would know how certain food or certain things are making you feel inside. And like everyone's body is different. If sauerkraut is not good for you, I am sure there are other ways that you can
other fermented foods, exactly.
But
even maybe you'd be better with a coconut kefir, that's also really high in natural probiotics. And I found that's probably the best way to make sure you are getting all the bacteria, because these are in a form where they've survived, been known to survive for thousands of years going through our stomach acid. And I find it's a bit hit and miss with bottles of probiotics. But it was a really, really good that you mentioned as well about the intention, because if we really thought about it and why, if we're just wanting to calm down or relax, there's probably much more healthy practices that we could do instead. They're often the harder thing to do, But if we really thought about it, it'd be like, yeah, I know I could do that. Like, I know I should do that. And yeah, it's all just comes down to habits and stuff as well. So maybe you need to make a habit or break a habit with an app or someone to be accountable to, because you know, oftentimes we might not have that willpower ourselves, and that's okay.
Spot on. And again, you are not alone on this journey. If you know it yourself, and if you're just starting to do whatever you're doing, and you know that your, I guess, discipline level is not that high, well, reach out to people. And that is why I love it when people say, I'm gonna go on X diet, or I'm gonna do certain things, because when you voice out, you have other things, other people who will check in on you and be like, how is that going, how are you doing?
And just remember as well, it's not about restriction, it's not about having untasty food or not having things that satisfy your sweet taste buds, you know. It's really about sort of finding another way and just sort of moving away from what we've grown up to know. So it's like doing those unfamiliar things, and now in this day and age there's enough information out there that we can explore and find out what those things are really easily, or you know, like, are welcome to message me. But it's a very slow process where you just kind of, you know, I'll just try this, you know, this little new thing, this is a bit foreign, but like you find that you either, although you might strip a lot of things away in say food or drinks, you probably gain even more, like bringing more different foreign things in that you had no idea existed. And I always say, like, almost every day we're like, oh my gosh, lunch is just so good. Like, it's completely different from what we would have eaten 5 years ago. But we're like, oh, this is so tasty. We joke that we make a little chicken and chips, and even though, you know, it looks nothing like chicken and chips you'd get at like the takeaway, we're like, oh, this just satisfies that, you know, that craving, that sort of like flavor that we've grown up on, but it's like in that really nourishing, healthy way that we've made ourselves really easily. And yeah, just exploring and finding that is so satisfying, because then you don't really want to go to those places. Like, we would be okay if we never went to a chicken and chip place again. And I don't think I could say that a year ago. You know, it's been a slow journey to rewire my brain and also change my taste buds and change the bacteria in my gut that wants those healthier foods as well.
What would be your go-to sweet craving food?
Go-to, I still have organic dark chocolate that's between like 85 and 90%. There's some good brands out there. If you go to the supermarket, the Green and Black's organic 85% chocolate is really good. Or in health food stores, what's it called? Alter Eco, they're 90% chocolate. Really good company as well. So that's probably my go-to. You know, if I don't have something baked, like, that's what I'll have.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm a big chocolate person, so things like hot chocolates and chais with like that little bit of nut milk and maybe even some sugar alcohol sweetener, like, will be enough to sort of hit that sweet craving. And yeah, for dessert, like, we generally always have dessert, like whether that's something baked or, you know, just some dark chocolate.
You can't help it.
Yeah, and it's changed a lot, obviously. Like, I'm definitely more conscious of like how much I'm having, but not in a restrictive way. It's just sort of, I have as much as I want in one moment, but I don't know, I no longer have the craving, and maybe that's due to emotional stuff, to have the whole block anymore, and probably just a bit of a change in gut bacteria as well.
You know how before you were talking about the buckwheat flour and buying it locally from Australia? So what would be some things that people need to be more aware of when they are purchasing things, especially for environmental issues?
Yeah, there's a lot. I think with produce, especially getting organic, I know that can be, you know, in people's minds, it's this block of like, oh my gosh, it's so expensive. But when you actually look at what goes into growing plants, like if you've ever grown any of your own vegetables or fruit, like, there is so much work that goes into it, and you almost feel like you're cheating the farmer if, you know, you paid any less for it. obviously there's health food stores that are like more, you know, organic vegetables that are more expensive than others, and maybe that will help if that's an issue. But looking for Australian grown and all health food stores will generally just have what's in season. A lot of the fruit is sourced from Queensland because obviously they want to, even in health food stores, they might want to have it before it's in season. But getting what's in season is so much better for our bodies because that's the environment we're in. We do a lot better when we just eat seasonally what's available. And you can kind of tell in the like in any of the supermarkets or health food stores what's in season with vegetables, because you'll notice like one vegetable is like $29 a kilo and another one's like $6, and you're like, whoa. I even say to people sometimes, be like, you sure you want this cucumber? It's like $8. Yeah, it's just because it's like hasn't fully come into the season yet, you know, and it's like, it might be inconvenient for our recipes or something. But what we tend to find, this is sort of going a little bit away from that, sorry, but what we tend to find is if you let your bodies, you'll naturally sort of gravitate towards those seasonal foods, and you know, you'll want more cooked hearty stuff in winter and more fats, and then you'll want generally more raw, fresher things like your cucumbers in summer. And obviously that's not a hard and fast rule. You know, you might have the odd dish that requires some cucumber, but in general, that's sort of what our bodies naturally gravitate towards anyway, because we want cooling foods when it's hot. We want warming foods when it's cold. But going back to what you're buying and being aware, I think generally looking as well where it was produced, if you're looking at a packaged food. So as we know, we have a lot of environmental issues, especially in really industrial areas like the cities of China and stuff, unfortunately, like where a lot of food's grown there and we don't really know the environment. And with the exception of things like you can get goji berries and different mushrooms and stuff that are grown in a traditional way on the mountains, really far away from any of the pollution and industry. So there are exceptions, obviously, to that. But in general, you know, as you said about the buckwheat, you can get buckwheat that's grown in China, and we're just not really sure about what the quality of that soil is, the quality of that air, the quality of that water, because we've heard so many things about, you know, that being contaminated and not having good enough regulations, even if it is organic, and just not being able to test that or any, you know, certification of it. So as a general rule, you know, unless it's saying that it's super clean and, you know, everything's being tested for heavy metals and for, you know, the purest air or whatever, then in general, it's probably not going to be, even if it's organic, unfortunately. So I guess it's important to understand that all those pesticides and everything are dripping off and going into the soil. And in the soil is where the plants also derive their nutrients. So I think it's really important that even if we can just afford a bit less food but organic, we might realize we might not even need as much food, but it's going to be so much better than anything conventional that we'd be putting in because of pesticides. And also there can be uncertified organic farms, and that comes down to a trust between you and the person that's selling it to you, say at farmers markets. And so I do believe that's even a good way to get organic food, even if it's not certified, because you've met that person and you just have that, like, that trust, you know, you take them at their word of what they're saying, because they obviously wouldn't be doing organic out of, you know, unless they had good intentions generally, because it is a bit harder as well. But the unfortunate thing is the certification costs so much for people. Like, I know a company that's working to get certified with their supplements, and it's just, regulation for that has been a nightmare, and the cost as well.
So you would highly recommend people to buy organically and check where the origin is from. But what if, you know, because there are some organic food, sorry, let me go back. Some people, they want to, I guess, cut down the packaging, so they go to those bulk stores. What should they be more aware of?
again the origin. Like if it's somewhere that generally has pretty good regulations, like Australia, like the United States, like I guess some places in Europe have very strict regulations with pollution and stuff, like in the EU. But again, like it depends as well where you want your food coming from, how far you want it to come from. And we definitely make exceptions from this. Like there is a very small percentage of food that we get from different parts of the world, like China, because that might be the climate that that plant grows best in. But say the bulk food store, I guess just make sure you're trying to do it for the health of the environment, doesn't sacrifice your own health. Like if you're really immune compromised and you're dealing with, say, autoimmune or gut issues, maybe just leave the bulk food store for now and do it when you've, worked on your health a bit more, because you don't want to be inviting any molds in or any pathogens that could be in that environment, because it is all open. Not to scare anyone off or anything, because I think bulk food stores are great, but it's just another thing to consider that I've learned, especially for people that are going to be sensitive to things like microscopic mold and that kind of thing.
Would you like to share how much you and Dayne normally spend a week on grocery?
We try and keep it around $150 a week for 2 people. But I understand like that's with, for some of it has a little bit of a discount. So say even about half of that. So say add $10 more on top of that would probably be more accurate. Say I didn't get a discount for a little bit of it. But yeah, we're very fortunate to have another really good health food store that I don't work out that's really reasonable, I guess, because we're a little bit more removed from the main areas up here. So they can be probably lower overheads. But I have still found other places that are around that sort of price where you can afford those things. And I think what it's come down to is having lists, and a lot of the time only getting the essentials, and then we have a separate section on our shopping list or from things that we can add that's our treats. That's sort of those things that, you don't really need, but like it's nice to get them every now and again. So chocolate's a necessity, by the way, but things like a coconut yogurt, that's generally not necessarily in our day-to-day diet, but it's something that's nice every once in a while, like a low-sugar coconut yogurt. It's got good, bacteria as well because it's been fermented, cultured, and so those sorts of things we can add on as we go. And it depends, if we maybe need to stock up on some big pantry things and it ends up being a big shopping week, we might just, leave some of the treats till next week, that kind of thing.
You gotta sacrifice it, sorry.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think because we let ourselves like have those treats not so frequently, but it doesn't really feel restricted in a way. We just sort of like, it feels more like a balance, like an ebb and flow of like, oh yeah, this is a week that we're like, it's a big shop, so maybe like we'll just keep ticked off some of those unnecessary things, and then next week we'll like and sometimes we'll just get them anyway, and it seems to all balance itself out over like a monthly period or something. It seems pretty balanced.
The reason why I asked is because it's really not that much, the amount you guys spend on grocery, because it's for 2 people, first of all, and is for 3 meals a day, and for some snacks and desserts and baking, and really
and chocolate.
And really it will be more
organic chocolate.
Yeah, see, and they're healthy for you. If you buy those packaged foods, it will be more expensive, because really you're paying for the packaging, you're paying for the marketing, the money really is not going into the food that you are putting.
That's a good point. And I would say like all the fresh produce we buy, like that's at full price at the local health food store, and that's really all what we'll buy majority of there. It's the majority of our shopping, I guess, not budget wise, but like the majority of food that we buy every week would be fresh. and it's so much cheaper than when you're buying packaged stuff. Like your grocery bill just goes up so quickly, and I find it all the day as well when I'm putting through people's items. I'm like, oh my gosh, you bought a lot. If like I've got a bag full of fresh produce, I'm like, oh yeah, and then it's so cheap. I'm like, my mind still boggles that way. And then when I've got someone that just buys pretty much all packaged stuff, I'm like, well, this is like getting really expensive. And so yeah, it's really clear that obviously the food that's generally better for you is also cheaper. So yeah, it's kind of like a no-brainer, but also we got to find, like, you know, the dishes and vegetables that we like. It's just sort of that experimentation and getting used to having 80% of your meal vegetables or something. Like, I think making them in creative ways is probably the best way to get past that. And so you're not sort of bored and bland with vegetables, because let's be honest, like, just having steamed everything can be pretty flavorless.
Start adding spice into your food. Highly recommended. Personally, I love cumin and turmeric.
Lots of smoked paprika.
Yes,
and lots of those herbs are also really medicinal. Sorry for talking over the top.
No, that's so good. I love herbs. What's your favorite herb?
Probably garlic, and it happens to be one of like the best for you medicinally. Dane hates this, but I put like a tiny little clove on top of my lunch yesterday.
Yum! I love garlic.
I feel so grateful to love such a medicinal herb and seasoning. But another one is probably like we put a lot of smoked paprika on things and cayenne pepper. So there's some of the favorites, definitely.
Cayenne pepper is one of the best.
And also health benefits as well. So you'll be adding health benefits to your food, plus making it so much tastier.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I feel like we honestly can talk forever.
I know.
Because, you know, it's life, and it's about health, and we are really wanting people to start taking responsibility over their life, because if you don't, then who will? Who are you living for? So,
and unfortunately that end result, negative or positive, will end up, you know, being because of what you did or did not take responsibility for. And I think we all want to have a good life and good quality of life.
Like now is if you want a quality life, now is the best time. There's so much information out there. There's people out there that are willing to help. So
and to not get sick, and, you know, just have it be that classic really bad chronic disease up until you pass away. You know, no one really wants that.
Yeah, there are ways, man. Well, before I ask you my last question, do you feel like there is anything particular that you would like to share?
No, I think we've probably gone here, there, and everywhere, and I don't want to overwhelm people with all, like, you know, the information overload. Sometimes it can be too much, and I'm sorry if I go here and there, but yeah, I think it's good to just keep it a bit more digestible and simple, people, because there's so many different topics.
For those who are listening and watching, you can just rewind and go back and take notes.
On that note, if you were to, I guess, think about the key things to take away and look at, it'd probably be, number one, choosing to take responsibility for everything in your life, and looking at what water you have, like how you can upgrade or make better your water situation. Dane actually put the jug out of the tap near my face the other day. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's just so chloriney. we don't, like, I didn't realize all those years I just drank tap water, even after growing up with filtered water. But it's really, really different, especially if you're in an area that's got really old pipes, you know. There's all kinds of crap coming out of there, not just the stuff that they add into it. And that, what I've recently learned as well, is that chlorine in it, it's to kill bacteria. So obviously it's then going to kill any beneficial bacteria that's, you know, on the food and stuff. So I guess minimally washing food I know that's not what people are used to, but especially if you're getting organic food, there's really generally not much that's going to harm you on there or need to wash away. And then obviously looking at ways that you can cut down on inflammation with foods, like, you know, minimizing sugar, minimizing that starchy refined carbs, and minimizing alcohol as much as you can. Minimizing stress, of course, easier said than done, but, you know, exploring the tools, looking into some of these different tools we've discussed today, and really trying to take responsibility for that, because it is each of our responsibility for our own stress. Unfortunately, I wish someone else could do it for me, but also, I guess, looking at your sleep and maybe some ways you could optimize that. We're just doing our whole season on sleep with our podcast. So if you want to hear some experts speak about the different angles we can optimize our sleep, definitely check that out. So much information, knowledge there. And I guess another area, as I was saying, would be that emotional side, and also the toxins in our environment. So that's another thing. Sorry. So water, minimizing our inflammatory foods that, you know, can really suppress our immune system as well. Taking responsibility and sleep. What was the last one? Sleep and environment. So, you know, looking at like the cleaners
and emotion.
Yeah, emotion. Sorry, there's too many. And looking at, you know, the household products, your personal products, and just seeing maybe where you could switch some out, or, you know, the next time you're due to buy one, maybe buy one that's a bit more natural from the health food store, and just see how you go, you know, see how you like it.
That is why you guys have seasons in your
It gets too messy.
Yeah, there's just like so much like we can talk about, and I'm honestly so excited for more people to boost their sleep and boost all aspects in their lives. So please,
because it's really the foundation of health.
Like
your health, you know, what you can do in that period while you're asleep. It's like the best bang for your buck of your time, pretty much. What your sleep does.
So please go and subscribe. Now, my last question for you is, how do you think we can be there for each other in general?
I think reaching out more, not waiting for the other person to reach out to us, because we all have this feeling of like everyone's so busy and we don't want to bother anyone, or, you know, that person doesn't make much of an effort with us, so we shouldn't make an effort. But yeah, I think genuinely trying to make more time for people to talk to them, because a lot of the time we can get so, and I'm nowhere guilty of this, of getting so consumed in our own stuff that we forget about everyone else, you know. And I think now more than ever, like, people are probably feeling a little bit alone with their own situation and emotions. So reaching out to as many people as you can doesn't hurt.
Yeah. I just want to add on to that. I think it's great that people are reaching out to people, but I also want to encourage people to be brave and reach out to other people as well. As in, like, if you are not feeling well, say it, because
the other person can't read your mind. Or what's going on.
Yeah, and maybe that person also too is going through something. So maybe you guys can go through things together.
And I think we need to sort of break down that taboo as well of talking about anything dark, that we don't want to burden someone with it. You know, a friend, that it might be too heavy for them and they can't handle it, or we're just a downer, because, you know, chances are that other person's recently gone through the exact same emotions, and it helps, you know, to normalize it and not feel like it's so shameful or so, you know, like such a failure to feel these things.
Yeah. You know what? Before I actually say goodbye to you, speaking about being there for one another, what is the greatest gift that you have given someone, other than today giving your time to me?
I think I love giving food to people. I know that sounds so weird, but like, I love making things for other people, like baked things, or giving them really nice food, and like, because it's one of those gifts where you don't really have to buy it, and for some time, you know, when I wasn't working, finances would be tight, but like you can still bake something, you know, you can always like afford to bake something and have put like all your love and, you know, energy into it. And I think, yeah, that generally people connect so much about food, and people, like, I get so much pleasure out of like seeing people enjoy the food that I bake, and yeah, so it's like a win-win.
Nice. So I just want to remind people that it can be as small as it can be, like baking or making, you know, call someone or whatever it is. Every little bit counts. Well, Indi, thank you so much for your time. I really love this chat, and I love you. I can't wait to chat to you again.
I know. Lots of information to take in, wasn't it? I highly encourage you to rewind back and listen to it again. There are so many great notes that you can take down to start implementing so you can live a quality life. Things like what should you eat more of, or maybe eat less of, or maybe how you can do your shopping to your advantage. Honestly, it doesn't matter what stage of life that you are at or what age you are. You can be 15, 25, 35, maybe 55. Doesn't matter. Start taking responsibility for your own actions. You can control what you feed to yourself. You can control who you let into your life. Yes, you got to do the work because nobody else is going to do it for you. But you know what? I know that you got it in you to live that amazing life that you deserve. So start today and start small. Start choosing whatever you know will improve your life. Start choosing to love yourself and respect yourself. Again, all Indi and her podcast details will be in the description below. Go and follow her and get some amazing recipes that you can start cooking at home. Now don't forget to subscribe, click the thumbs up button if you have loved it, and share it with someone because you never know what they're going through. Please do a screenshot and tag me on social. I will highly appreciate it. And remember, you are amazing and you are not alone, and I will see you next time.